attendees to join us shortly. And let's see.
And just checking,
Would
Katie, do
Mhm.
you know if I'm listed as a co-host in case, like, if anything happens, I can't.
Let's do that right now. Making you co-host. And Taylin is here. Welcome. And hi, Holly. Hi, Katie. Hi, Shayna. Hi, Lauren. Hi, Ariana. Hi, Kimber. Do we want to take a moment to make sure that we pronounce your names correctly? It would be great if we could go around and maybe introduce ourselves just once, one at a time, and say your name so that we can be sure that we say it.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the all-teen issue of Inlandia, A Literary Journey, the spring online publication dedicated to the creativity of teens. Today, you'll hear from teen authors, editors, artists, and the winners of the first ever Editor's Prize. This event is put on by Inlandia Institute, which is a literary nonprofit organization serving the Inland Empire. My name is Christina Guillen, Programs Coordinator. It's my pleasure to introduce the Director of Inlandia, Katie Porter, as well as the teens who will be reading later on. So Katie, welcome to the teen issue of Inlandia, A Literary Journey.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you to all of our guests today and our teen authors. I founded this literary journal in 2010, so about 10 years ago. And at that time, I'd never dreamed that we would have an all-teen issue. That was something that Victoria Waddle, our new managing editor, brought to us as a concept. And as a writer who started in her teens, it really makes me, this is something that makes me very happy to see all of you teens being so creative and getting your work out there and being here today. So I would like to introduce Victoria, Victoria came to us through Inlandia's writing workshops. We also offer free writing workshops. And she joined our advisory council, and she joined the literary journal as staff. And it just became a natural fit to have Victoria. I was thrilled when she accepted to become the new managing editor. So Victoria, welcome, and thank you for coordinating this issue with all these great writers and artists.
You're welcome. I'm really excited about it. And I wanted to say just a couple of things to the teens who are here, or for anybody who happens to watch later on YouTube, that you don't know sometimes how far your writing reaches as a teen. And I think that it's really important to think of your voices as they are. As Katie said, a lot of us begin writing or being creative in other ways as teenagers, and what that does to others, to help others, whatever. I know some of the people who had signed up to be here today were like on the newspaper or their creative writing clubs and things like that at school. And I thought, oh, that's really cool, because you do have a voice in your own community. And one of the things that I noticed, I'm doing this now, but I was also spent many years, I was a high school English teacher and also a teacher librarian. So I would teach kids like how to do elementary research at the high school level, but we would also do a lot of like book talking and reading and had a book club and stuff. And one of the things I noticed, like one of the most popular things that we ever had year after year, two things were like a blackout poetry thing where people got to express themselves in poetry. And then we also had an open mic night, and it was like, so we could like filled rooms. We had to get bigger rooms. I mean, there were just people coming, listening. They wanted to hear each other's voices. And I know a couple years ago too, that the National Endowment for the Arts did a little survey and find out that more and more people are reading poetry and things like this. And this was even before the pandemic. And as the pandemic rolled in, I thought, well, you know, so much more do we need to hear one another's voices and things. And I wanted to read to you guys a little bit, because I think this pandemic really has affected a lot of us. I know for me, I have a personal story during the pandemic. It was really, really crazy. And I was taking care of my mother who has dementia while my father was dying. And then he came home and I took care of him as well. Well, so both of them while he died, and he did die on April 26th. And like, it was such a downer time, and it was a pandemic, and we were in this lockdown in this facility because they were elderly people, you know, who had to be locked down. I'm sure you've heard of this. And so it was just like the uplifting thing for me, honestly, was to be reading your work and to be inspired by it and to know that it was going to be published. And that was the one thing when I was in this really strange lockdown environment in a time of death and dementia. And it was like, this is amazing, these young people doing their work. So I thank you very much for that. And I want to say that also I had a really weird experience in this past year and a half. I found out that I have a half sister whom I've never known, but I'm sure you guys have heard of 23andMe, and people learn that they have relatives they never knew about. And I have this half sister who's significantly older than I am. Well, we're trying to get to know each other. And one of the things that I told her was that I was managing editor for the journal. And so she's been reading the journal, and she's been reading the teen issues, and she's an elderly person. I mean, she's a senior, and she's very interested in the teen issue. And I didn't even tell her the teen issue was out yet, because we're just, like I said, trying to get to know each other. But she just sent me a thing, and it was like yesterday. I thought, oh, I want to read this to you guys so you can see that your work really does influence people that you wouldn't know. So she lives in Oregon, the state of Oregon, which is, you know, West Coast, and she lives about halfway in the middle on the coast. And wrote to me yesterday in an email, I'm simply floored by the stellar quality and truthful intensity of the writing and the images in this latest teen issue of Inlandia. Congratulations to the writers, poets, and artists, and to everyone who contributed their editing skills. And then she said a little bit later, she talks a little bit about the magazine and some specific pieces. And then at the end of that, she said, I'm so glad the kids have had something creative and meaningful to do, and a place for their voices to be heard and respected. And I love that. It just came at the perfect time for me. It makes me know it's not just us in our little world. We are reaching people from in other places and in a meaningful way. And so congratulations to you. And as Katie said, this finishes off our 10th year of the magazine. And so how wonderful, what a great way to end off as with your work. So thank you very much.
So if you would like to say just a few words, this is your third year co-editing the journal. What has that been like for you?
Well, I've always really enjoyed it. And actually the first journal that I did was a teen journal, because the editor before, we had always had adult stuff, and he was coming to a point in his life, I think, where he was getting very, very busy. A lot of good personal stuff coming up for him, and it was really great. And I had been working with the journal as as a fiction editor. That I write a lot of fiction. I have a book of my own, a collection of my short stories coming out in early 2021. So I'm excited about that. But a lot of my stories have been published in different places. And one quite a while ago was published in Inlandia. And I think that's how I got involved first, is like, you know, I had this thing published in there. So then I ended up as one of the editors of the fiction. So I was talking to him, we were talking about just different things we could do. And in Inlandia, I said, you know, I've worked all my life with teens. Like I said, a high school English teacher, a longtime librarian who was like trying to connect kids with reading them books. And I'm just like, let's have a teen issue. There aren't very many venues for teens. And I don't know if any of you here did it, but I know several of the teens from this issue, after we were done and they were accepted, they sent to me, like questions like, where else can we get our work published? Like, where else can we put it out there? And there are a few places, not that many. And some of them, you guys, are just contests. So like there's only one winner, and nobody else who turns in their really good work gets anything published. So it's very difficult. So I was telling him, you know, it's just hard for teens. Where do they put their stuff together? Yeah. And I was very excited about the idea of doing a teen issue. So he said, okay, but could you do it? Like, just do the issue. Because, you know, he was less familiar with teens. I said, yes, you know, I'd be really happy to, and let's have teen editors instead of our regular editors. Just step aside and we'll just get some teens. And we had a pretty good response to it. We had a really lovely issue the first time. We had so much fun. Out in the you know, what do you call it? When we had the launch, the arts walk, it was just like a blast.
Literature on the lawn.
Literature on the lawn. And so I thought, well, let's just keep doing this. And then when his life became too busy, then I just took over the adult, I guess I would call it the adult issue, but the regular issues too. And then I've just been doing it ever since, all of the issues. So
awesome.
It's been a great experience.
And we've been really lucky too to have the same slate of editors. I mean, I think we've expanded with the teens, and I'd love to hear from Stephanie too about what has been your experience. What have you learned as an editor?
Well, it's definitely been a very crazy experience for me just because I actually didn't start writing not too far from when I started editing to being a guest editor. So that was very different. I thought that I couldn't even write something on a piece of paper, and now I was reading many other stories that it was just really, really insane. But it's been a great journey. I've actually made a lot of new friends on campus, just, spreading the word about the magazine. That was really, really fun. Just getting to tell others that, your stories matter, your story is relevant, and everybody wants to hear it if you want to put it out there. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you've felt it was a good experience for you, and it's given you hopefully some confidence with your own writing.
Mm-hmm.
And this year we added a new component with editors' prizes.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christina, would you like to make the announcement? Okay. Whoops. Uh-oh, Christina, unmute.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Our Editor's Prize winners for the first ever Editor's Prize. Let's start with Shayna Bull. Shayna Bull is
Woo!
the Art Editor's Prize selected by Victoria and the Teen Editors-in-Chief. Congratulations, Shayna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lauren Kawecki, the winner of the Poetry Editor's Prize. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And congratulations to Sydney Burr. She is not here right now, but Sydney has won the prize for a nonfiction editor's prize for her piece, "This Political Op-Ed is Not About Trump." So congratulations.
Yay.
And our last winner, who is also not here today, but her name is Max Ediveri. She is the winner of the Fiction Editor's Prize for her piece, "Lita and the Swan." Congratulations to Max. Congratulations to all our winners.
Yay.
And even more reason for people to tune in now and to read the journal later. So we have some really good pieces and also some artwork. We're going to hear from our readers now. So
Well, Victoria, I think, has a...
Real quick before the readers read, I didn't realize that Stephanie was there. I have like a little tiny view. I'm like going blind. Hi, Stephanie. But yeah, the teen editors were great. And I want to say Stephanie and Kiani, who also couldn't be here, have been editing for 3 years. And that's how they became the teen co-editors in chief, is because they've been doing it a long time. And one other element that is in this journal that we haven't had in the past is to have them talk. I had like little interview questions for Stephanie and Kiani about what they select and why. Like what do you look for in a piece? And I think for a lot of teen writers, that sort of thing is important. Like, I don't know what people want, when they're looking for something. And they did a wonderful job of that. And then talk about what they're reading and kind of books that they thought would help others, if other writers, to read as well. And so I was really, really appreciative of their work. And as far as the people who won too, it wasn't just us. What happened was we selected them, and basically Kiani and Stephanie selected them. And if there was a tie, then I was the tiebreaker. But before that, we had several other teen editors, and the other teen editors upvoted the things that they thought were best, and the ones that got the most votes. So you kind of went through a process, those of you who won, like the ones that got the most votes, then those were pulled aside and they went to Kiani and Stephanie, who looked at those with, the ones that really had the high votes, and then they went up. And then if there was something else, then I went too. But I tried to stay a little bit out of it because I really, really wanted to empower the teens to do these things and make these selections. And they were able to do that. So congratulations again to those of you who won. But I just wanted you to know that it was like a multi-step process there for you.
Yeah. So I'm going to share the cover of the journal if anybody would like to see what it looked like. And it has Shayna's prize-winning artwork. For those who are listening, if you would like to look at the journal, it is inlandiajournal.com, INLANDIA journal, JOURNAL.com. So please do visit the website, and let's get on with the readings. Excited to hear.
Okay, so first we're going to hear from our reader, Stephanie Martinez Beltran. And I'd like to read her biography first. So Stephanie is a college student attending the University of California, Riverside. She's pursuing a BS in microbiology and enjoys reading YA fantasy, writing poetry, and listening to punk rock music. She has published poems through Appley Publishing and the Inlandia Institute. Some of her main goals include becoming involved in biomedical research and using poetry to promote healthy self-expression among teens. So let's hear again from Stephanie. Welcome.
Thank you. Is it okay if I skip though? I'm super shy when it comes to reading those kinds of things.
Okay, we can come back to you. Let's have Shayna Bull. So Shayna Bull is an 18-year-old senior at Grand Terrace High School. She's going to attend Culver Stockton College in the fall to participate in collegiate volleyball and plans to major in nursing. She has been drawing since a young age. Throughout her years, Shayna has worked with multiple mediums consisting of pastels, acrylics, watercolor, charcoal, and sketches. Art has been a great part of her life and is one thing that gives her the most joy, especially when completing the different pieces and being able to see each piece as it transitions from an idea into the artwork. So Shayna Bull, who is on the cover of our journal. Welcome, Shayna. Would you like to talk about your artwork?
Sure. Well, I'll talk about the cover piece because as I said before, I do several different pieces. I stay busy doing tons of different art. I'm actually working on another piece right now, but that piece was actually my first time ever painting with acrylics. And so a lot of it took me over a year to complete that one piece. Just a lot of trial and error of working with that, working with the paint and seeing what worked best, blending the colors. So it was a long process, but I enjoy every minute of it because you get to really see all the different details. One of my biggest struggles though was trying to separate what the picture's supposed to be, and because when you think, oh, it's water, it should be blue, but if you do that in the painting, that it doesn't look realistic. So that was one thing I really had to learn and take into practice with this painting.
Well, you know, for your first one of that medium, it sure came out lovely. So
Thank you.
did a good job. And do you do writing as well?
I actually just started writing like a little bit before quarantine even started. I started putting down some ideas for like short stories, poems and stuff like that, but I don't feel confident enough in like actually doing more with it. It's just kind of ideas put on paper.
Very nice. Let's hear next from Mira Trovulu. She's a 16-year-old born and raised in California. She's the 10th grade and she's a 10th grader and an avid reader. She loves to write, specifically poetry and short stories. When not writing, she enjoys playing basketball, running outside as much as possible. Her writing style leans toward grander themes about life, including courage, bravery, love, loss, and others. Her portfolio is a conglomeration of stories, poems, thoughts, and pieces that she has created over the course of her life. So let's hear from Mira.
Thank you so much. So in this journal, I think 2 pieces of mine were published. So in the time that I have, I think I'll just read both of them. They're not very long and they're 2 poems. So both of these poems were inspired by my favorite poet, Pablo Neruda, and it mainly focuses on some of the grander themes, like you said, love, loss, just like moments of nostalgia and joy. And so I'll just read both of them right now. Okay, so the first one is called A Moment. I pour you a glass of compromise. The ceramic skin of the cup laps the rushing stream of water, a tongue outstretched, thirsty and afraid. The variegated lines in your palm, jagged tic-tac-toe grids converging into meaning, like the hesitation I can sense in your eyebrows. As I plead with you, silver tears dribble down the clefts of my face, a metallic taste in my mouth of the watered down pain far too heavy to carry on our shoulders. As you step onto my toes and my heartstrings, the truth dies with its master, cocooned in the musty grave. My body shivers from the tips of my nails to the rushing veins in my nervous system, the ink of my blood staining the coating in my eyes, the clear gloss muddled. Your eyelids brush my chest, heavy breathing, unsteady heat, and I never want to forget the roaring of the hail and the hush of the wind. But as your spilt water seeps through the splintered cracks of my tiled kitchen floor, and my throat echoes into the trenches, crimson dampness in a scarlet night, your feet shuffle into the stars, and my heart hangs with steel. So that's the first piece. And the second one is called Forgotten Whispers. Okay. Your toes curled on the dusty rooftop. The breeze wisps my neck, and I sigh into the horizon line, like chocolate melted over the stove, a sweet lullaby. Mumble your breath onto my eyelids, onto the strings of my limbs, onto the lips of the somber seeking summer skyline, our days under the sun. So those are my two pieces. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for reading, and thank you for joining us today, Mira. I have Kimber Drawn, who will read to us next. She's a high school freshman in Southern California. During her free time, she enjoys reading, writing, playing basketball, and hanging out with loved ones. She's been a creative writer for as long as she remembers and hopes one day her writing will be bound in leather. Kimber, welcome.
Hi. Okay, so I wrote the short story The Odd Folk, and I got the idea one day when I was walking across the school campus after my last period of the day, and I saw a poster that it was celebrating diversity, and all of a sudden an idea popped into my head, and I thought I better start writing. So I only have time to read the first part of it. But here it is. Sia Aselamatic. A girl stood solemnly as her name was called. Her dark hair swayed above her shoulders. She wore the plainest of dresses. Her face was crafted to perfection. Sia approached the stand. She held her breath, holding her arm out to the hooded doctor. She barely flinched as a black needle was dragged across her brown skin, pinching her flesh, drawing blood. Her arm stung before going numb. She stared as the three letters became reanimated, flaring to life on her wrist. S-A-M. This was the third occasion she had received her marking, her initials engraved into her skin to remind her, to distinguish her. Sia strode back to her chair, folding her hands neatly in her lap, crossing her ankles. She watched intently as the ceremony commenced, but the buzz of her initials was distracting. Pea Vokelman. Another girl rose from her seat. Sia and Pea were perfectly identical. Short dusky hair, golden brown skin, dim eyes, unblemished features. Pea marched emotionlessly toward the stand. The doctor drove the shining needle into her awaiting wrist. She momentarily ogled at the sight of the newly carved PVM on her skin before returning to her seat. Then the next girl was marked, and the next, each one sharing uncanny resemblance matched in their faces, physiques, and silence. Each one returned with a reminder on their wrist, a reminder of who they were. As the last of the 20 young women returned to her seat, the young men assumed protocol. They were no different. Sure, they had the masculine features of a 16-year-old boy and hair shorter than any girl's, but their skin was just as golden, their eyes just as shallow. Peter on Arenia. P-R-A. And so it went. It went until all 19 young men were seated and marked. Sia recalled the days when there had been 20 boys. When she was 13, one of them had disappeared, right after the second marking ceremony. She could not remember his name, but she knew he had been a little different. His differences were admirable in her eyes. He was outspoken, defiant. Everyone else was quiet. The math doctor surveying the room came over to usher the girls in one direction, the boys the other. Sia stepped in line behind Pea, wondering what was going on in her mind. Did her thoughts parallel Sia's? Was she thinking anything at all? As they marched out of the plain white edifice and through the symmetric streets of town, Sia ran her thumb over the thin engraven initials on her wrist, a mere tattoo, the only thing to separate one girl from another. She scanned the reflective window of a building as they passed, and she saw herself. All she saw were the 19 other faces that were her own. So yeah, that's the beginning. Thank you for listening.
Wow, thank you, Kimber. And we still want to hear more, so make sure that you continue to read in the journal online. Ariana Duckett has been writing creatively for 5 years, beginning on a little writing app on a Kindle. She has moved several times and enjoys traveling and exploring the world. Since her first Kindle, she has enjoyed watching her work grow more refined and more complex, and she hopes to pursue creative writing as a career. Ariana, welcome, and let's hear from your work.
So I did a short story. It's called The Memorial. I think it was sort of based off of when for eighth grade, then sometimes they have like a trip for the eighth graders. So we went to Washington, D.C., and we just saw a lot of memorials there from several different wars and whatnot. So I think that sort of inspired this short story, and yeah. Okay. The memorial was long and elaborate, stones pressed together for the inscribed names of every American World War II soldier that died in battle. Identifying every single soldier took years. Years and years of lists and recollections, with large textbooks and endless hours of checking. But now it was completed. They allotted a substantial section of Washington, D.C. to the cause. The memorial was a twirling, curvy stone structure that made a shooting star in the aerial view. One could walk through the spirals bleeding off the star, reading the names of thousands. One could feel the floor light up beneath them and watch the ghosts of their loved ones finally come home. I was one of those people, waiting for my father's name to be written in neat, polite cursive among thousands. I went during the day, flowers and tears, and walked. Alphabetical order, thank God, I thought. There was no other way I could find a William Wallace in the sea of words. There were long names, short names, and unique names. I nearly laughed, despite my grief, at seeing hundreds of James Smiths or Robert Wilsons, and so on.
Thank you, Ariana. Oh, did it freeze?
I think
I spotted a name I thought I would recognize, another Wallace. People made jokes about similar last names. People made the fastest connections. There were plenty of Wallaces when I was out in France. Like thing 1 and thing 2, we became a long list of numbers. We hated the numbers, so we made specific nicknames for ourselves. Numbers were too real and too intimate, especially after reaching concentration camps. I wondered if the sweat on my palms was hydrating the flowers as I walked. Petals cascaded to the ground as my hands trembled. I found myself apologizing to the flowers, even, then hoped no one was nearby. I wondered what this memorial meant to those who were not affected by the war. It was a showcase, an exhibit. I saw kids run their fingers over their names, never seeing the blood, sweat, and tears behind them. I was mostly surrounded by women, to my surprise. They all lingered in the same places, gazing at the same sections, murmuring between painted red lips. What soldiers, being able to stand before their ghosts and not cry.
Oh. Okay. Okay, Ariana?
And then he was an old man. They made grandfathers fight in the war because the oldest bones were the toughest. As I passed this vast list of names, I realized they could never count the names of everyone really killed in war. Who starved? Who became homeless and died in the depths of winter? These were the questions the records never asked. These were the questions the memorials could not answer. According to the governments, my father was a soldier, not my workaholic mother, not my skeleton-thin baby brother, not my frostbitten aunt. And while I mourned his honorable death with every bit of my soul, I mourned their deaths too. I eventually reached the W section. My heart seemed to thrill. Finally, I thought, the recognition. He'll be known somewhere other than his gravestone. But at the same time, I was worried. I was worried I would break down crying because 5 years still wasn't enough time to recuperate from his loss. I struggled to find a way to fully leave him in my past, in photos instead of my heart. Other people seemed to be looking at ghosts as they read their special name. I wondered when Dad would appear. We're all just delusional, aren't we? I thought. Death makes people delusional. Dad's friends would jokingly call him Willy Wally. His parents didn't make the right decision giving him a similar first and last name. It only made him closer to them. It was the first time I saw his name when he was first there. Old man Willy Wally, the man with hands for holding children and eyes for looking at the stars. Then I broke. I fell to my knees, pressing my forehead against the smooth stone, the flowers falling out of my hands, and I cried. I cried for 10 minutes until a timid hand tapped my shoulder. Excuse me? A girl's voice chirped. Who are you crying for? I raised my heavy head. It had perfectly fallen on William Wallace's name. That one. I nodded towards my father. William Wallace? That was my uncle's name. My eyebrows lifted, stretching tears. Was a lovely man. He died a while ago, but still feels like yesterday. She laid her flowers next to mine. We dryly chuckled. Do you, want to keep talking? Even if war is a depressing subject, it's quite fascinating to learn more, like I'm revisiting my father. There's a countless number of soldiers I would hear stories from, stories reflecting the aspects of my father I had never seen before. This one was one of them. Sure, your uncle's got a lot of stories. We soon sink, our loads lighted, and left with my father's ghost watching. That's the end.
Okay, Ariana, thank you so much. And virtual claps for her and all of these writers who are writers beyond their years. Such deep subjects that they're writing about. Let's hear from Katie Flack. And Katie Flack is a high school senior residing in Southern California, where she is the co-editor-in-chief of her school newspaper and president of her campus creative writing club. In her free time, she loves reading, writing, and obsessing over Star Wars. She will be attending Kent State University in the fall. Welcome, Katie.
Hi, thank you. So I wrote a short story and it's called With a Sidelong Glance. And I've actually had the idea for like a lot of years. I don't know like particularly where it came from. I just know I was like, every time I read a book, it seems like they use the phrase like, if looks could kill somewhere. And then I was like thinking about that, like, oh, what if I went further with that? And that's kind of where I came up with it. And so I don't have time to read the whole thing, so I'll just read the first part. Jared had always known he was different. The mask concealing his face, the hushed voices following him wherever he walked, the disgusted pairs of eyes lingering on his finger, the shrieks of children, had made sure of that. But the first time he really understood he was different, the first time he really saw the true extent of his isolation, was when he was 6 years old. Newly separated from the uncaring bliss of toddlerhood, he was released into the wolves' den, the public schoolyard. His mother was worried, but his father assured her that Jared was stronger. He could handle anything. And so, with a gentle, sorrowful, motherly pat on the head, the boy was sent off. For a moment, the other children didn't seem to notice him. Their wide eyes were trained on undiscovered playground equipment, their ears intently focused on the shrill, wonder-filled shrieks of friends, their lips occupied with the rush of a summer apart. Jared let himself exhale as he stepped through the grass toward the tall brick building, like a kraken ready to devour him. What's wrong with your face? A voice rang out through the schoolyard. Jared could feel the tension of every eye turning to him as he dared spin around to face a pigtailed girl hopping off a swing. Smacking bubble gum in her teeth, the girl stepped toward him, green eyes shimmering cruelly in the morning sun. Jared self-consciously adjusted the heavy blue mask on his face. His family's all-consuming poverty prevented them from purchasing anything more casual-looking, more ordinary. Jared looked at a worm wriggling in the dirt, digging his shoe into the ground. He shrugged. The girl scanned his hidden face. Why are you wearing that thing on your face? He shrugged once more, still not looking at her. Jared knew that the questions would fade soon enough. The bell would ring and the children would scatter to meet their teachers. Are you missing your eyes or something? She mused. The girl walked around him in a circle, as if scanning him for any more insecurities. Are you all stitched up like a zombie? That's Frankenstein, Jared corrected, without thinking anything of it. His father read his stories to him every night, and the realm of monsters were his greatest fascination. The young boy would ask him to read the same ones over and over again, feeling as though just hearing them landed him on the very cusp of greatness. He grinned just thinking about them. Zombies are just dead people that come back to life. Frankenstein's monster is made of lots of old people all sewn together like an old jacket. No one paid any notice, but the girl did. Her cheeks burned red. She combed through her blonde pigtails before her eyes narrowed, her jaw tightened, and she threw her hands down into fists. Yeah, whatever, she gnawed angrily at her gum. At least I don't have a piece of plastic on my face. Jared's eyes fell back to the ground. He shrugged again, feeling ashamed, though he didn't understand why. What's under that thing anyway? As she pushed once more, determined. If Jared could have foreseen her schemes, he would have run away, but he was just a boy, just a child. He shrugged, adjusting his mask once more. Without asking, the girl reached forward and jerked at his head. Hey, Jared now shouted out, stepping back. But the girl was bigger than him. She moved with his body, and although he screamed and thrashed, she tore the mask off. You wouldn't think anything peculiar at first. A brown-haired, brown-eyed little boy with freckles dotting his cheeks. A normal kid. But then he stared up at the girl, face scarlet red, and something happened. The girl's body was immediately twisted around by some invisible force. She screamed as she was held still, suspended helplessly in midair. Jared, eyes full of shock, began to panic. He didn't know what to do. The others screamed, pointed at him. When he saw this, their bodies were spun around as well, every last one, until all around him was a circle of backs, no face physically capable of seeing his. Shrieks of terror surrounded Jared. Cries for teachers, parents, help, help! Jared put his mask back on that day, and the children returned to the ground. They scowled and spit at him. Most wouldn't dare go within 10 feet of him. His parents decided not to send him to school that year, maybe when he was a year older. No one tampered with Jared's mask again for a long time, but no one spoke to him either. And that's it with that section.
Thank you. That certainly flows. It's a great piece. Thanks, Katie. Taylin Huang is a 7th grader and an avid writer of fiction and poetry. She hails from Shanghai. She binge reads YA and mystery novels, plays basketball, and daydreams about the good old days when she lived in Houston with her mom. Unfortunately, she has a fatal weakness for chocolate. Taylin, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi. So, to talk a little bit about my short story, it was inspired by a book that I've read. I think it's called A Child Called It, and it's about a child who was terribly neglected and abused by his mother. And I was just really shocked at how someone could be so cruel to their own. Is this saying flesh and bones or something? So yeah, I was inspired to write this short piece. And since I don't want to take up too much of your time, I'm just going to start from the middle. For one lucid moment, when the pain mercifully ebbs, however, I realize what has just happened. Mother killed Dad. Odds are she used her favorite kitchen knife, the one she reserved for special occasions and kept nice and polished, the one she nearly sliced me open with. Maybe she's going to kill me too, I think. Maybe that's why she left the room, to get her knife. Should I be scared? I don't feel scared, just numb, like a block of ice left in a deep, dark dungeon. The door opens a crack. A chink of watery light filters through. I brace myself for the icy, leering glint of metal. It doesn't come. Instead, the shadow quietly tiptoes into the room, dragging what seems to be a large, life-size doll behind it. Or is it a sack to put my corpse in once I'm dead? No, it's a doll. I can hear the shadow's heavy, labored breathing as it finally reaches where I lie on the ground and gently lays the doll down by my side. Now she's going to kill me. I'm sure of it. I squeeze my eyes shut. A newly healed slice across my forehead bursts open. I can feel droplets of blood, warm and strangely soothing, rolling down into my hairline. I hold my bruised arms as close to my body as possible so they won't be stepped on. Nighty-night, darling, the shadow whispers, going so far as to brush its lips against my forehead. The gesture is feather-light, but still I wince in pain before remembering that Mother hates weakness even more than she despises my father. Any moment now. The shadow curses underneath its breath. Crap! I've had enough of blood already. It picks up a piece of something and rubs it against its mouth. I envision chapped lips, blood oozing from a deep cut, before remembering that that was what happened to me, not her. Now I'm definitely in for it. A sigh. The soft sound of a piece of fabric landing lightly on something. The shadow turns away and backs from the room, all the while murmuring, "Sweet dreams, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite." I remain detached, devoid of emotion. She's acting. She's playing a part. I know it's not genuine. She's trying to toy with your emotions. The door clicks shut. I can still see a small sliver of light struggling to reach me from the other side. My numbness gradually fades away. She'll come for you in the morning, when you're least expecting it. I stretch out my arms gingerly. Inch by inch, I explore the frozen floor with my fingertips until I touch the doll, and recoil in disgust. It feels lukewarm. The skin feels strangely rubbery and human-like. Could it be? My neck touches something cold and solid. I shudder reflexively, then pick it up and hold it before my eyes to examine it in the near darkness of the basement. It's cylindrical, made of metal. A flashlight. What's a flashlight doing here, in the dungeon? Surely Mother prefers me suffering in darkness. Darkness equals an absence of hope. Very allegorical, according to her demented, schizophrenic logic. I turn the flashlight on. Cold light washes over the ceiling. I find myself admiring the light for some reason. You don't usually have time to appreciate beauty when you're being thrown around every waking minute. I cast the light around the room, mesmerized by the beam of light. It's childish, I know. I forget about my would-be murderer lounging on the couch in the living room overhead, in all likeliness watching television. I forget about the lifelike doll, until the beam of light illuminates it in my peripheral vision, a crooked figure on the ground. A morbid fascination overtakes me. Without considering the consequences, I roll over onto my side. Pain lances through my head and shudders through my ribs, which I hadn't realized were fractured until now. I bite down on the collar of my shirt to suppress a scream, both from pain and fright. Sprawled out spread eagle on the floor next to me is a body. A man's dead body. I can still see the stain, the same color as rust, at the front of his snowy white shirt. Small trickles of blood leak steadily from the freshly congealed wound underneath, but are quickly absorbed by the cotton of his clothing. His face, though, is concealed beneath a bloody handkerchief. I close my eyes and count to 10 inside my head, a technique taught to me by a kindergarten teacher who was more interested in my bruises than me. When the 10 seconds are over, I draw in a deep and painful breath. I reach out a hand to whip off the handkerchief, lightning quick, and force myself to look into the lifeless eyes of the ugly, cowardly father who left me to the clutches of a schizophrenic monster. Thank you.
Thank you, Taylin. That was very chilling and thrilling. Lauren Koecki is next. So Lauren is a high school student in Rancho Cucamonga, California. She enjoys writing, cooking, wasting time on YouTube, and bothering stray cats with unsolicited love. Lauren Koecki, welcome.
Hi. So a lot of the inspiration for my poetry comes from just my struggles with mental illness, which is something I've been dealing with for quite a few years now. And poetry has just become a healthy outlet for me to be able to process that. And so here they are. The first one is called Persephone. Do you ever stop and feel the world turn around you? Plant yourself for a minute. Listen to your heart pound. There's an emotion stuck in your throat, and you're not sure whether to laugh or cry. You're not even sure why. I stand thigh deep in the lake. The waves crash against me, pulling me out. I am solid for the first time in months. Not transparent, not small, just there. I am no longer a ghost. A laugh comes up my throat and through my lips. It doesn't sound like mine, I think. I must look insane. That laugh rises through my stomach and falls from my mind, meeting somewhere in my mouth. It makes my head light. I am insane, and for the first time in months, it is good. The waves hit me again. They do not go through me. I feel the sand beneath my feet. The water cannot claim me. For the first time in months, nothing can call me its own. I take another step forward. I am Persephone. I control what ground is under my feet. I am dead, yet here I stand today alive. Winter is gone. Blood rushes to every part of my body, reviving what had begun to decay. I hear it pounding in my ears, another rhythm adding to this world of cycles. Sweat clings to my shoulders and back. It is proof to me, proof that for the first time in months, I am alive. So that was the first poem. I had 3 published, which is just an amazing honor. I love this journal so much. The second poem is Hades, and it goes, I am Hades. I am death and life and all the things you fear and all the things you love, and I am alive. The world can strip me of all, strip the blood from my veins, strip the air from my lungs, the life from my mind, the joy from my body, and the skin from my form, leaving only an empty corpse. But I am back, and I am screaming. I want blood, and it won't be mine. I will rip the world from those who took it from me, took my Persephone, leaving only a ghost of an underworld, simply a cage for a king. But I am alive, despite everything, despite all that you did, and despite all that you didn't, despite all your turned backs and half smiles and unhelpful words. I am alive. I will not stop until life fills my corpse, till the point that I can feel the air in my lungs once more, until I can remember who I was before you killed me, before you took me, smuggled my bones but not my body, leaving a shell in my seat, offering small glances as smiles and screams. So follow me down. I am Hades, and I am alive. And those, they were written as a series. Persephone and Hades, they're a pair, but they were actually written a year apart from each other, like at the exact same time a year apart. So that was just like an interesting connection between the 2 of them. I don't know why I did that, but and then the last one is the dichotomy of light. The hope it sows, how bright it glows, streaming from its cave. The hope it sows, how deep it goes, and how quick it does decay. You planted my joys, and you took my sorrows, and I swore one day I could fly. You swallowed my joys, and you stole my sorrows, and I swore one day it was lies. You followed me down, and you stole my crown, and I knew I couldn't be king. You followed me down, and you shook the ground, and you forbade my voice to sing. Just as the caged bird doth echo evermore, hear me quaking in your words, I was merely blood on your sword. Not merely in lust, not merely in hunger, but both in darkened love. Did you grasp my bleeding heart and squash that shallow dove? If this is my last utterance, if I live only now in dreams, when my pitiful echo stops, know it was for you that I screamed. Those are my poems.
Thank you, Lauren. You know, and it's so great to hear that you're turning towards your artwork, towards your creativity, your writing, and you're so expressive. So thank you. Sophie Mateja is a freshman at Pescadero High School. Her work has been praised by critics for its evocative language and deep insight. Taking first prize at numerous local competitions in the past 2 years, recently Mateja was declared a finalist in the Palm Beach Poetry Festival's Ekphrastic Poetry Contest. Mateja's work has been published frequently in the Half Moon Bay Review and other anthologies, including AIPF's Diversity. In addition to writing, Mateja enjoys playing orchestral classical music as the principal violinist of the Santa Cruz County Youth Symphony. Sophie Mateja, welcome.
It's actually violist, but that's okay. No, there's violas and violins, but that's okay. Just like small correction. I think my poetry world is a less public world for me than my musical world and my sort of activist world, and so it's sort of a retreat, and it's in moments of quiet that inspire my poems, which is sort of a contrast to my music. And I think I'm going to read 2 from my 3 today, art class, and then my final, the final of the 3 that was published, called For Artemis. You greet me, pressing sweet nothings into my morning gold. Dawn watches and imagines where night has gone. Freckles and smiles and creases sketched slowly in her stars. In my arms, all cuffed and pretty, beautiful, trouble-causing things, sunsets past midnight and the moon. Looking through our kaleidoscope, a plethora of shattered stars, shards of words against her dimpled cheeks, crushed purple velvet in our stretched limbs, contours of forgotten landscapes, dreamt by Picasso and Monet. Flares of whiskey, caught and swirled, a blur of gradients, watercolors plunged quickly shot glasses of curtains, shielding and spilling blue periwinkle eyes, lifting slowly, a ship in the sky, soaking half-used lotion in droplets, quarter profiles and small smiles, deep throes of seas, waves, crested and forgotten words, crinkled papers and phrases and smudged scars, blankets of unknown, carpeting someone else's mind, mine wondering the opposite. And then the second that I want to read. So here's the thing, my friend. The world cries and someone must play the role of bastard, illegitimately renegade, yet tied and anchored, all steel and weight, sinking slowly. I'm sure you don't recognize this wonder, this miracle that is you in the world, despite furious storms of flame and the undulating sea. We're stuck on this damn boat, trying to preserve the sail forever. Thank God for sailors. I feel the boards below me, cold and damp, for I am tied, coarse ropes twisted under rivets of scars, blossoming rivers of velvet, burns and battles fought far from shore. Above the ship turns, and I peer through slits in the hull, humming some melody I forgot yesterday. Helpless against sail and wind and sea, watching against the tilt and splash, watching demure walls, ashen sunbursts, the rough swirls of mind cutting, scuffed winter mud, the edge of my seeping crusted veins, edited, snipped collage, a personal oblivion, those webs of stolen arteries, torn road maps, forgotten tomorrow. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It was wonderful to be published. And I'd like to share that I gave these poems to my poetry mentor who does haiku, and he just lost his sister to the coronavirus, and it was very special for me to share these with him.
Thank you so much for sharing. You're such a talented young lady.
Thank you.
And then next, we're going to hear from Holly Zeideveld. She's a teenage poet from England, UK. She often writes poetry based on observations she makes and on love. She also uses her poetry as a form of feminist, climate, and LGBTQ activism. Aside from poetry, Holly spends her time practicing flute and piano. You can find her at Holly Zeideveld on Instagram and Twitter. Holly, welcome. We'd love to hear from you.
Hi. Firstly, before I start, I just wanted to say that it was really inspiring hearing everyone's work today. Yeah, it was a really special experience. I wrote this poem. It's called "The Girl I Want to Be," and I wrote it after a pretty bad breakup I went through, where I felt like I needed to be a different person, but I wasn't quite there yet. So yeah, this is it. The girl I want to be. She is bubblegum sweet. She's a dream come to life. She opens her mouth and the sun comes out. She is spontaneous and pretty. She cares just enough. She is a girl who catches glances in big mason jars. She fills up her backpack. They're teenage girls dancing at the party, their bodies pressed and kissing. She stands them on the shelves at home and writes a label with her favorite pen. When she is done adding to the collection, she lounges on the pink velvet armchair and looks up at her bounty. She reminisces, pointing a soft finger to each as she gives her tour to the audience inside of her head. This one I got from the boy at the cafe. This one, the adult when I laughed too hard. This one, when I said have a good day. And when she is almost done giving the tour of her gallery, she sees her last jar and says, "This one is the most important. It belongs to the girl I loved most." Thank you. This was a really great experience, and I'm really honored to be here.
Well, we're honored to have you, Holly. So thank you for participating. So let's circle back to Stephanie Martinez Beltran. Would you like to read?
Yeah, so I haven't looked at this poem in quite a while, so I was kind of trying to scroll through it and see, what I was thinking about the moment I wrote it. This was actually a challenge that a friend gave me. I was going through a really bad writer's block, and I told him, give me 2 to 3 words. It's just random, and I'll write you something. I don't know how long I'm going to take. And he gave me a sunflower and the moon. And he told me that the topic had to be growth. but I've never been good at writing like positive growth poetry. It's always pretty dark and depressing. So I wrote this poem about a sunflower and essentially what it's like to be a mother and the sacrifice that goes into that. I was inspired by the relationship that I have with my mom that didn't start off that well when I was younger, but now I see that she'd do anything to make me happy. And so this is the poem. The crystalline stars always shone the same, fluorescent embers of toxic pungent fluids that struck like crystallite blades into the susceptible flesh of nature. They glimmered beneath their independent supercilious glows, refraining the passage of any notion of compassion or remorse to invade their shallow consciousness. The inferno of judgment would never possess the gentility to thaw their glacial hearts. The glacial heart of the damned, the frivolous jealousy of the fool, the licentious laughter of the insane, the dissecting scrutiny of the cynic. They were never content, their sins expanding within the broad horizons of an intoxicating wildfire of envy. The alluring tenebrous heavens never shattered their illusionary encapsulated perfection, a paradise rendered prisoner by a ventriloquistic moon that patiently awaited the virulent lull of a crepuscular tide, a feeble marionette that never failed to orchestrate a tempest of tumultuous winds, a deluge of delirious rains, a pandemonium of pagan darkness, a rippling tide of plaguing nausea against the passive seeds and seas of midnight rye, a massless cavernous mouth that engulfed the buoyant breath out of all existence. Nevertheless, there she was, the final vessel exhaling the breath of life, a single luminously naive sunflower, oscillating within the delicate embrace of a seaweed solitary hill, as her piercing petals poignantly aimed in resistance towards the malignant skies, her slender petals shielding frail seeds within the nurturing desert of her amber crown. Her beauty was profound, eccentric, perennial, the beautiful tenderness of motherhood, the beautiful stability of safety, the beautiful empathy of compassion, the beautiful resilience of sacrifice. The unavailing feud encircling the northern and southern winds swirled turbulently in dancing opposition, as her decaying aromas of putrescent oranges and cherries wrenched the innocent seeds from her gentle arms, vulnerably raining upon the objurgating barren fields of a calignous today and a promising tomorrow, the promise of a picturesque tomorrow, the promise of a prosperous tomorrow, the promise of an animated tomorrow, the promise of a cure. Her pallid stem languished in agonizingly contortions, attracting contortions that elicit a quivering gasp, as her inaudible pleas for clemency drowned in the roaring hurricanes. The hurricane that mercilessly slammed into her spine, a spine that gave a crestfallen snap drenched in overflowing bewilderment, as her splintering remains sharply bowed into a silent rhythmic surrender, terminating the everlasting waltz of yesterdays. The halting breath of tomorrow emanated in a resigned sigh as the flaccid drooping stem gingerly retracted beneath the curve of a shelling embrace, the embrace of her selfless roots, roots that embraced her flame, roots that were her solace, the embrace of a son, of an eternal son. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome job, Stephanie. I like the way that you dove into your poem by asking somebody else for 2 words to give you a starting place. You know, sometimes that's just the hardest part. So great job with running with it. Good job. So now that we've heard from all of our readers, I wonder if there are any questions from the audience or any questions maybe that each of these writers have for each other, or maybe if Victoria has a question.
I just want to say, it's not really a question, but how much I enjoyed like the interplay with some of these things. Like, no, Stephanie, I was so worried she wasn't going to read her poem. And I hope people do look at hers and others as well, but in the journal, because Stephanie's poem, the way that she's has her lines and the way it's centered, it looks like a flower growing. You have to actually look at it. It looks like, you know, it's about the sunflower and the eternal sun, and it comes up as a flower. It's very lovely even to look at. And I think too, one of those stories that we're listening to today about the kind of the idea of being marked, I thought was interesting. It fit with some of the other like pieces in there, and even the piece, I know that one of the pieces Shayna did a piece that was a Medusa head, and it's just it's brilliant. And I again hope that people look into it, into the journal, and see it. But it fit really well with one of our authors today, because the author today didn't give away the end, but of the story. So I don't think should give away the end of the story either, I think. But it has something, let's say, one of the stories that was read today, you have to read, has something a little bit to do with the concept of Medusa. And so here was this wonderful, great drawing of Medusa that fit with this picture. It was just really awesome. And I can remember too, for the teens who were reading, talking about how great it was to have the poem. And I wish almost you could see the comments from the teen editors, because they don't comment on everything because they have to read a lot. A lot of people submitted whose pieces were not accepted. And those I was trying, and I always tell the kids who aren't accepted, they're very close. Pieces that are not accepted, I have found, and I'm sure that others like Stephanie, others who read them would agree, they're very close. They're just not quite ready yet. And so we try to give some comment to them about how to maybe just change things up a little bit. You're almost there, just to be really encouraging, because they really are good pieces. They're just close to publication. And so the ones that did get, though, sometimes the teens would offer some feedback on some of the ones that were. And I know, like, particularly Lauren was saying, oh, it's so nice to have 3 pieces in here. Oh my gosh, the feedback that Lauren got from the teen editors, it would be just great if she could see, because they're like blown away. They just love the poetry. And I can even remember myself, like, reading things. I would read and I would write little things. And of course, like I say, I wait for the teen editors. And I remember when I was reading Mira, when in that first line, when it said, I pour you a glass of compromise, I just thought, oh my God, I hope this poem makes it in. I hope the teens vote for it, because I love that. Just the line alone, I'm ready to take the poem, So just the happiness that some of us felt in reading it was just amazing. And then you can see, I hope you can see the interplay here, but you'll see the interplay a lot better when you just look into the issue of the journal, when you see the art pieces and things like that. So, so thank you again.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for your comment. So I think if there are any other questions.
I just want to share, I second what Victoria said about how wonderful an experience this really was and I hope that all of you keep writing and keep creating art, and, keep coming back to this. We will be doing this every spring. So please, come back again next year. And I also want to let you know about an opportunity. So I'm going to do a quick screen share. We have Inlandia has a summer creative writing camp that is virtual, so through Zoom, and it is free. So all you have to do is register. There's an information sheet. So, oops, if I can move this over where you guys can all see it. It's called Poetry is Power, and it's free and online. If anybody is interested, just go to the URL. It's called tinyurl.com/poetryispower. And, I am just so entirely excited and happy for all of you. Looks like we have something in the audience too. But trying to open the Q&A. Oh, Tim Hatch just wanted to say all of the readers were wonderful and thank you for sharing your work. Tim is a poet and he is part of Inlandia's workshops program. He leads our workshop in Ontario. And so that's some high praise from a publishing active poet. So thank you to all of you, and especially those who are on different time zones. So
that's right. We have one person who is staying up late, one person who is waking up early. So everyone made it, and you didn't let anything stop you. So great job for being here and for all of your work and reading. Yep. So thank you to everyone, our team presenters. Congratulations on the editor winners, and everybody for becoming published authors. So great job on that. Thank you to Katie Porter and Victoria Waddle, all of the editors that were involved in this project. And thank you to our audience for joining us. Be sure to check this journal out online. And that was it. I was also going to mention Poetry is Power. So great
Okay.
for that. And hope to see more teens in the summer. So that would be wonderful. All right, everyone, thank you. Enjoy your weekend and continue writing, continue reading, and enjoying your time off. So thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks to all.